if MPD chases these young people on the bikes, these I'm a fan of motocross and extreme sports, right? So I see the guys on the bikes, right? They're professionals. These young people are not professional drivers. So if the police were to follow them or to chase them, we're going to have a fatality. So that's not the remedy. And so what MPD is looking at now, they're using the helicopter to really kind of zone in and follow them until they stop. They also said, they'll get a cruiser behind them and just follow them until it runs out of gas. And when the motorbikes were just a major nuisance to us, that was a little bit more acceptable as a form of how we're going to address this issue. But now that it's escalated to, it's not about helping us with a nuisance. It's about helping us stay safe and not die. Going to go back to the table with the chief, and we got to figure something out. I mean, obviously, we don't want to chase people because we don't want people to die trying to keep other people safe, but we got to figure something out.
But do you think these ATVs, these motorbikes should be banned? Is that sort of what you're suggesting?
So I'm not going to say that they should be banned. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to find a patch of land, and I'd like to put some hills and some dirt bike paths and some cross, because these young people need something to do. They're doing something, right? They're not, sometimes it's, mom or whoever, you can't hang out in the house. So they're trying to do something. So it's a cry, I believe, or at least a request to the community that we want to do something and give us something to do.
Is that a program that you're going to push for? Is that something you're going to start working on?
I'm going to evaluate every possible option of how it is that we provide an option for these young people that are on bikes to do something that is safe for themselves and safe for the community. And if I could figure out how that happens, we'll figure that out.
I want to talk about one more issue before we get into some council business. Patrick, WMATA, the transit agency here in Washington, announced yesterday that it was going to ban all issue-oriented advertisements from metro stations and buses. This coming after the group behind a Draw Muhammad event that sparked a shooting in Texas submitted the winning cartoon from that contest to run as an ad on metro buses and in subway stations across the area. What happened here?
Well, it's a situation where there's no easy answer, because you have this contest that took place that obviously was offensive to many people, but not only that, but it sparked violence. And so there's concerns that if you brought this here to DC, put it on metro buses, there could be a public safety threat. The response by Metro to ban all of these issue ads, though, I mean, that's problematic too, because it raises all these questions about what are these issue ads? I mean, how many, what's going to constitute something that would be banned by Metro? So it raises a lot of other issues that the transit agency now has to address, but I don't think there's an easy answer here.
That's Patrick Madden. He's our guest analyst this week. He's a reporter for WAMU 88.5. We're also joined by Amy Gardner. She's our guest analyst too. She's the senior local politics editor for the Washington Post. We're talking with LaRuby May. She's a member of the DC Council representing Ward 8, taking your calls at 800-433-8850 and your emails at kojo@wmu.org. I'm Michael Martinez, sitting in today for Kojo Nnamdi. LaRuby May, you won a special election just a couple weeks ago by about as razor-thin margin as one can win it, and you won the grand prize of jumping straight into budget season on the DC Council. What was that like, hopping into the council full gear as they were debating this $13 billion budget this month?
Overwhelming. Probably is if I just say one word, but challenging, but exciting. Just so very privileged to have the opportunity to serve the residents of Ward 8, and so didn't get very much sleep. I'll tell you that committee reports are not sexy reading. Not exciting reading, but I tried to read all of the committee reports. I didn't get a chance to read all of every committee report prior to the budget, but my colleagues on the council were very helpful in helping me to understand. I went to the question that I asked them is, what were your priorities and why were they your priorities in terms of the budget? And so to help give me a perspective as I go in to decide to support parts of the budget or to not support them, it was really important for me to understand the intent of what the budget was.
Amy Gardner.
I've got a question.
Yes,
speaking of priorities, on the campaign trail, you got a great deal of support from Mayor Bowser, and also drew some criticism for that support in Ward 8, where Mayor Bowser did not perform all that well in the primary last year against sitting Mayor Gray, and where there are some suspicions historically of citywide priorities. Can you tell us where your priorities for Ward 8 differ from Mayor Bowser's for the city?
And if I may piggyback off of that, because here's where we can enter the Sherwood. And I told you that you have been warned. This is one of the questions that he specifically asked for me to pass along to you. Mayor Bowser and her supporters went all out to help you get elected, but you only won by a handful of votes.
Exactly.
How can you assure Ward 8 voters in the coming year that you're going to establish some independence from her and that you're not simply a Bowser puppet?
Wow, so that's a long question. And it sounds just like Mr. Sherwood. So I think it's a very simple answer on where my priorities differ from the mayor. The mayor's priorities are to represent and to serve the residents in all 8 wards. My priorities are to serve the residents of Ward 8 so that we have 2 different populations to be able to serve.
What's an example? Oh, it's a policy example of where that we will see that difference.
So I would have to say that when the policy happens, like as of right now, I don't have a policy that I'm putting forward, and I've not seen a policy put forward from Mayor Bowser that we will see that. But again, the mayor is a friend, the mayor is a supporter, and the mayor also understands that LaRuby's work in Ward 8 started well before I met Muriel Bowser. My commitment to the people are there, and it may be. To try to think about it right now, we will probably differ in our value of placing money in education. I am an early child care provider, and so my efforts are just very strong in early childhood education, and the mayor's priority is middle school.
Well, actually, I have a follow to that. Councilmember Grosso has been critical of Mayor Bowser's education budget, particularly on the capital side, where there was a plateauing or decline in capital improvement expenditures. Where do you stand on that issue?
So if you look, one of the things that I got a chance to read and study is the chairman of the Education Committee, Mr. Grosso, has tried to lay out this grid of priorities of capital improvements or capital funding for schools based on this rating system. It's pretty intricate, actually, and I'm very grateful for the work he and his staff did on that. And essentially what he wanted to do was take the priority of funding schools away from politics and take it to based on need. And so there are some schools in the portfolio that have never been touched. One of those schools is Orr Elementary School in Ward 8. And so his 2 different categories, or the rankings are 2 different rankings, and Orr ranks number 1 in both of them. And so, I'm always going to push for more money in capital spending for the schools, because a lot of the schools on this list that have never been touched are in Ward 8.
So are you agreeing with Grosso that this budget represents a change in direction for the city on education spending?
I agree with Mr. Grosso that we have to prioritize the funding based on the needs of our children in those communities like Ward 8 and the schools in Ward 8 that have not been served over the years because their voice hasn't been as loud. They haven't squeaked as much. And so that's where I agree. And so, whether or not I agree with your statement from Mr. Grosso isn't as important for me as the Ward 8 council member as it is to make sure whatever money is spent, that I try to get as much of that money for the residents of Ward 8. But I've been in Orr many times. It has an open space model. That model hasn't worked for African American children since its inception. Orr needs a lot of work. Garfield needs a lot of work. We have many schools in Ward 8 that need it. And so I appreciate his new model of looking at priority based on the need and not based on politics.
Patrick Madden, your turn.
So, council member, you're replacing the late Marion Barry, who was a tireless advocate for residents east of the river. One of Barry's great accomplishments was the summer jobs program. So I want to ask you about that.
Okay.
There's been a fight between the mayor, Chairman Mendelson, about this program, raising the age to 24, 6 weeks at minimum wage. Chairman Mendelson has said that this really isn't going to create, sustainable, well-paying jobs for people. More, it would be better if money was put into a job training program, UDC. Can you defend this program, the summer jobs?
He said, prove us wrong, and it will force us to reconsider
Right.
raising that age to 24.
And I look forward to supporting the program to prove him wrong. And so I think that we get lost, though, in the conversation when we say about proving someone right or wrong. This is about providing an opportunity for young people. This isn't about the chairman being right or the mayor being wrong. This is about, in Ward 8, we have a large population of young people between the ages of 22 to 24 that this is their first job. This is their first opportunity to get an understanding and of that. My staff, I have a motto, right? Early is on time is late, late is fired, right? Which helps people keep their jobs. And so those are some values and some lessons that during this 6 weeks process that these young people are going to get an opportunity. It's almost like a 6-week interview to be able to get prepared for a permanent job, a long-term job that will lead to long-term employment, sustainability, the preventative things that could happen when we look at employing a population of individuals during the summer. And again, I believe that we got to make sure that it leads to long-term employment.
Well, what concerns do you have about expanding the program generally? Because this is a program that has gotten unwieldy in the past when things have gone wrong and the numbers have shot up as they did under previous Mayor Adrian Fenty.
So, we'll never have enough resources to fund all of the young people in the District of Columbia having a job. Now, I'm going to advocate that that you fund at least 100% of the young people in Ward 8 to have jobs, right? And so if we get enough money in the budget for that works out for me. But what we have to do is begin to look at making sure that there are resources for our young people to do things in the summer, to have opportunities. They're actually, even in Ward 8, right, there's a population of young people that are in situations where they need something to do for the summer that may not necessarily need to be compensated, but they need to be, gaining strength or resources doesn't always have to be financial resources. I understand that many of the young people in Ward 8 need financial resources, but there's also populations across the city, including in Ward 8, where the resource could be learning and engagement. And so we got to be able to look very creatively, I think, about the Summer Youth Employment Program, and both those individuals who are doing it and need the financial support and those who just need exposure so that they can continue onto a path of success.
You're listening to the Politics Hour. I'm Michael Martinez, a producer at WAMU 88.5, sitting in today for Kojo Nnamdi. You just heard LaRuby May. She is the DC Council member representing Ward 8. We're also talking with Patrick Madden. He's our guest analyst this week, a reporter for WAMU 88.5 News. If you want to join our conversation, the number to call, 800-433-8850. You can email us at kojo@wamu.org or simply tweet us at Kojo Show. But the next question goes to our guest analyst for the week, Amy Gardner of the Washington Post.
Another question to ask you regarding how you feel about some of Mayor Bowser's positions. This week, a Court of Appeals issued a ruling that sends the city's Budget Autonomy Act back to a lower court for consideration. Mayor Bowser declared this ruling this week a victory for budget autonomy. As most of our listeners probably know, this city does not get to pass its own budget. It has to get congressional approval. Is she right? And is it worth passing an independent budget and trying to enact it without congressional approval? Is it worth risking a government shutdown? Where do you stand on this issue?
So I think one of the things that's important to realize about the action that the mayor is taking is that in I believe it's in 2013, the referendum was passed like 80%. So it's the will of the people. And I think that the mayor has an obligation to move forward the will of the people, similarly to the way that I have an obligation and a responsibility to move forward the will and the agenda of the residents of Ward 8.
Does that mean passing a budget and asking the chief financial officer to cut the checks without congressional approval?
I think, again, we passed it. And again, it's been a while, so you guys will help me. It sat over for the congressional review for the requisite time period, and so it passed. Correct.
The DC Budget Autonomy Act.
Yes.
Correct.
Right. And so that's the way that our laws are passed in the District of Columbia. And so, I believe that it was a victory. Now, not all victories come without every decision we make comes with a consequence. There are positive and negative consequences. And I think that because the mayor is moving forward with the will of the people will continue to support her moving forward and considering this a victory.
I'm going to take a call here from Dan in Washington, D.C. Dan, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Thank you, Michael Martinez. The concerns about engaging our youth helping keeping them off the street and giving them opportunities to learn. And social justice and the environment all come together in the 25-acre site that we have at North Capitol, the McMillan Sand Filtration Site, where we advocate a Glen Echo-style arts and education campus to keep our young engaged and off the streets for 365 days a year, not just a summer program. And the environment there is a green space, and the city council is giving that site to developers, including about $170 million. And LaRuby, if you're going to support giving our young places to grow healthy and reduce this horrible crime incidence, then you can't be voting $69 million in the budget. And we need our citizens to call their council members and demand that $69 million that we need for affordable housing and homelessness and support programs for youth to be taken out of the budget, not given to developers.
Okay,
Who are going to take that site.
Dan, I want to give LaRuby May a chance to respond to your question, but I also want to reframe that because we're going to talk about Ward 8 issues here. The Kojo show did take our show on the road. We did a couple of days of live broadcast from the Anacostia Playhouse in late March and early April. And one of the things that we heard from time and time again from folks when they were talking about development more generally is they were eager for development that was going to lift up the ward rather than make it more expensive and push people out. There were a lot of people who seem to be very afraid of changes that might be coming down the pike. And I'm eager to learn from you how that's informed what you now want to do as a council member.
Change is difficult. And so historically, the District of Columbia, when we've had predominant African-American or even dominant low-income communities and the district has come in and developed it, we've not done a very good job at developing that with the people. So along the campaign trail, one of the things I was very clear about and I talked about, door after door after door, is I'm not as big of a fan of economic development as I am of economic growth. And so economic development for me is bricks and mortar. We can build things, right? We can build apartments, housing, we can build retail. But economic growth is doing the economic development while growing with the people.
Your campaign slogan was "So Ward 8 may rise."
So 8 may rise.
What does that mean?
So 8 may rise. So I mean, it's a play on the fact that my last name is May, right? And so
Oh, I get it now.
but also so they can rise. I mean, I've been so extremely blessed to see incidents or occasions of Ward 8 residents rising, whether or not it's young people that I started working with who were born and raised in Chapa City, one of our more violent neighborhoods, right? I've seen them rise from Chapa City to college graduates, right? We to Brittany Mooney, graduate, born and raised in Chapa City, graduate from Spelman College in Atlanta. Lawrence Duncan, a sophomore student at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical Engineering University. And so when residents in Ward 8 have opportunities, they will go from what I want to do as the council member is essentially serve as a bridge, so that where our Ward 8 residents are, where our Ward 8 businesses are, where the Ward 8 education system is, that it goes from where it is, crosses over a bridge that I'm blessed to be able to provide to full potential, so that we can rise to full potential. And I think that the residents of Ward 8 are ready for that. We've been left out. We've been promised, or elementary school was supposed to get capital dollars in 2013. Right. And so we're just kind of frustrated with people telling us what they're going to do for us. And so am I. And so we're going to just fight to make sure that those things happen. And when we look at development, we've just got to make sure that the city's commitment is such that it's putting money into projects such that it allows for them to remain affordable. If the city only puts enough money into development of Ward 8 for people to develop it without sensitivity to the residents that live there, then the people have a right to be afraid.
You think there should be affordable housing requirements in projects?
So this is what I believe about affordable housing and low-income housing, that the District of Columbia has a responsibility to its most vulnerable residents to provide opportunities for us all to stay in the city. What I also believe is that Ward 8 should not have or disproportionate part of that responsibility. It is a shared responsibility of the city. And so, do I believe in affordable housing? Absolutely. Do I believe in quality, low income housing? Absolutely. Do I believe we need that in Ward 8? Yep. But do I believe we need it in Wards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6?
Do you believe there should be requirements, a certain percentage?
Yeah, I think that again, unless we make a sincere commitment to make sure that there are opportunities for individuals, residents to have places that they can afford to live, that yes. So, and whether or not it's through inclusionary zoning and or other programs that we have, incentive programs for our residents who are here to be able to stay, I think that, again, we can do it. The city is in a really good place, I believe, to make sure that we have those type of requirements.
We've got time for one more question, and rather than go to my crib sheet of questions that have been submitted to me in advance by Tom Sherwood, I'll let Patrick Madden ask one more question of Ruby May while we've got her in the studio.
One of the big issues in the budget that was just passed is increasing funds for tackling homelessness. How are you going to, a year from now, what is going to be the best way to measure how effective all this money was going into this program? What are you going to be looking at to determine whether or not this was effective?
So I will be looking at what we do for our families, very specifically the families over at DC General. What are we doing for, again, making sure how many units are online, how many of those units have been provided for our most vulnerable residents, how many of those units come with the necessary and requisite wraparound services for them to be, for the residents to be successful. And I'm going to be looking for a continued commitment. This budget attacks homelessness more aggressively as it relates to homelessness. We all recognize that the unfortunate situation with Melissa Rudd really forces us to look at children and families in homelessness. But in Ward 8, we have 801, where we have hundreds of single men that are in a shelter. And so I'm going to be looking to see what impact this budget has very directly on the men that live in 801.
A lot to talk about the next time you come back on the show.
That means I get to come back.
Yeah, that totally
right
means
on.
you get to come
Right
back.
on.
Looking forward to talking to you as you
Yes,
get into
sir.
more council business. The Ruby May, thank you
Yes,
so
sir.
much for joining us.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
sir. Thank you both. Thank you, sir.
That was the Ruby May. She is a member of the DC Council representing Ward 8. She is a Democrat who recently won her seat in the special election earlier this spring. And you're listening to the Politics Hour. I'm Michael Martinez, sitting in today for Kojo Namdi. We're joined in the studio by Patrick Madden, our guest analyst this week. He's a reporter for WAMU 88.5, and by Amy Gardner. She's another guest analyst who is the senior local politics editor for the Washington Post. And Amy, you spent a lot of time covering politics in Virginia. You spent a lot of time covering the Republican Party at the national level. And it was a year ago that Eric Cantor, the former majority leader of the U.S. House of Representatives, lost in a shock primary to Dave Bratt, outflanked to the right by a Tea Party conservative. And here we are a year later. The Speaker of the Virginia House of Delegates, Bill Howell, is being challenged by one of his former proteges from the right. What do you make of the primary race looking in front of Bill Howell right now?
It's a great question, and it's a very interesting race. I think there are some important distinctions between the Howell-Stimson race and the Cantor defeat a year ago.
That's Susan Stimson, a former chair of the Stafford County Board of Supervisors.
That's right. And, Eric Cantor's defeat was shocking to everybody, including me, although what was not shocking were the reasons why, which you and I talked about before the show today, which we had documented a little bit. He had not cultivated relationships within the conservative wing of the Virginia Republican Party. He had not been as attentive to his district and its conservatives in particular as he should have been. And those conservatives are very motivated voters in primaries, and it cost him dearly. I don't think that there's the same level of evidence that Speaker Howell shares that vulnerability. He is a fixture in his community. He's a lawyer. He's been Speaker for a long time. He has some strong relationships with conservatives within the Virginia Republican Party. He has some adversaries within the conservative wing of the party. Susan Stimson is one of them.
And she's playing up the Bob McDonnell transportation bill, his big legacy bill that was seen as one of the key achievements of his time as governor. And people are now saying this is not something that goes over well with conservatives.
Which is smart.
Yeah.
It's interesting to look at the Barbara Comstock, the congresswoman from Northern Virginia, when she was a state delegate, voted against that transportation bill as she looked to the future when she was planning to run in the Republican primary for the 10th congressional district when Frank Wolf announced his retirement. There's a conventional wisdom among Republicans in Virginia that had Comstock voted for the transportation plan, she would not have made it out of that primary. And it's also very interesting to see how Comstock has changed, is navigating now as an elected member of Congress on issues of transportation and other sort of bread and butter issues that are of importance to Northern Virginians. But so back to Susan Stimson, that's a smart issue to hammer Bill Howell on because it's not a popular initiative among conservative Republicans in Virginia.
We're joined now in the studio by another Northern Virginia who's looking at the primary on June 9th. Bill Ewell is the mayor of Alexandria. He's a Democrat running in a primary for re-election against Vice Mayor Allison Silberberg and former mayor and city council member Kerry Donnelly in just 2 weeks. Bill Ewell, thanks so much for joining us.
I'm glad to be here.
So you ran for Congress last year. You pivoted from that. You're running for re-election this year. Why is this a job you want back?
Well, I'm a native Alexandrian, and Alexandria is my boyhood home. I've been serving as the mayor for almost 13 years, and certainly I'm very pleased and proud of the fact that I've had the opportunity to serve as the mayor. First elected in 2003, made history not only for myself, but for the city of Alexandria in the 254-year history, becoming the first person of color to serve the city as its mayor. And despite all the challenges that we've had to face, certainly we've met those challenges. We've risen above them, and we're moving forward with a lot of successes. And I'm proud of my record. And certainly there's still unfinished business that I would like to take care of.
If you want to join our conversation with Alexandria Mayor Bill Ewell, you can call 800-433-8850. Email us at kojo@wamu.org or simply tweet us at Kojo Show. But the next question goes to Patrick Madden.
Mayor Ewell, it seems like this race is going to be about your record. And one of your top opponents has criticized you and your record for being slow to act in regards to the Potomac Metro Station, that other economic development hasn't taken off in Alexandria. Can you address this criticism, and are you proud of the economic growth that has taken place in Alexandria as mayor?
I'm proud of my record as mayor, and certainly proud of the economic growth that's taken place. I think what the opponent that made that criticism of me has failed to acknowledge is the fact that when he was mayor, there were very good economic times. But since I've been mayor since 2003, we certainly have had to experience the recession from 2005 to 2010, at which point in time during that period, the city council had to cut and reduce its operating expenses by more than $65 million. But yet, through all that, in addition to the banking crisis, the housing crisis, we've been able to persevere. And for 13 consecutive years, we've balanced our budget, and we've gone up to Wall Street to 2 credit rating agencies to have our double AAA bond rating renewed. So I think that in and of itself is a success story. The fact that, that's proven leadership, that we're well governed and well managed.
Amy Gardner.
I have kind of a reverse corollary question to that one. Even as you've been criticized for your economic development record and for Alexandria's economic growth, your city, like pretty much every community in our region, struggles with a gap between the affluent and the poor. And so when we look at the development that we've all seen come around the Potomac Yard shopping area and the potential, the decision about the metro station and the signs of growth that, you welcome and that many leaders of the region welcome, how do you balance those priorities with the sort of lingering challenges of employment and housing for your lower income residents?
Very good question. And again, being very proud of the fact that not only have I had the opportunity to serve as mayor, but for 13 years, but city council 9 years prior to that, on our school board for 10 years from 74 to 84, and certainly a product of public housing. So I'm very sensitive to the needs of the low income folks and people in our community. But, you know, when I first ran for mayor in 2003, my theme was being a leader for One Alexandria. And I've continued to advocate for that. And that simply means bringing everyone together throughout the city, all the political parties, the faith-based nonprofit, to work at Alexandria's challenges. And certainly we're not any different than many other cities across in the region, but across the nation. And so we work at bringing a balance, striking a balance to deal with all of those issues. And I think we've done a very good job at it. Just more recently in terms of housing affordability is now how I talked about addressing affordable housing. You know, we have upgraded the public housing stock pretty much for probably about 75% of our public housing units that we have throughout the city. And this, you know, so this is not leaving people behind. This is actually making a difference in their lives and providing an uplift for them and increasing their quality of life as other changes occur throughout the city in different neighborhoods like Potomac Yard. We are actually and have incorporated into that development 64 workforce and affordable housing units that are built on top of a fire station, which was an innovative idea and thought of mine to prove and show that we are indeed a caring community and we want to be inclusive and respect the diversity that we have.
I want to go back to my Tom Sherwood crib sheet here because he did have a question about the Potomac Yard Metro stop. And Tom, while he may joke a lot about not ever going to Virginia, he did say last week that he does go to Alexandria occasionally, that he went to the sports authority there. And I think he said he got swimming fins or something random. I'm trying to imagine Tom Sherwood scuba diving or swimming around with swimming fins right now. That's a distraction. I apologize. Anyhow, Tom's question is, the Potomac Yard Metro stop is an expensive gamble for Alexandria. What gives you confidence Alexandria will attract the new businesses and residents that will make it a success and not a money drain?
Well, I mean, everything you do in life is a risk. Certainly everything you do in terms of business and major significant development is a risk. But we've had a proven track record of success with a lot of development opportunities that have occurred, whether it's been bringing the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office headquarters to Alexandria, now the National Science Foundation, and a new campus is under construction with 3,000 employees coming in about a year. We approved the waterfront redevelopment project that's being implemented as we speak. And so we know that these are hard economic times, but yet we also know that potential prospective developers and builders are looking at Alexandria as an attractive place to invest and to build. Potomac Yard provides that opportunity. And, you know, with planned with the metro station stop coming there, that will allow for a total build out of about 7 million square feet of development that will create 26,000 jobs, 7,100 new housing units, and projected to generate anywhere between $1.5 billion to $2 billion in tax revenues to the city over a 20-30 year period, not to mention the economic benefit for the entire metropolitan region. Now, granted, again, it's a risk taker, but we base a lot of that on the fact that when an infill station along the metro system was opened at Navy Yard, NOMA station, New York Avenue, that in and of itself has been a very huge economic engine for the metropolitan region. And I serve on the WMATA Board of Directors for the past 14 years. So we don't take lightly building and constructing infill stations unless we see the economic benefits.
Okay, enough Tom Sherwood questions for the day. We're done with that. Patrick Madden, back to you.
Mario, what's the plan to deal with all these infrastructure costs that Alexandria is facing? There's the city hall to fix city hall, all the sewer. I was reading it would cost over $100 million to fix the sewage problem in Alexandria. What's the plan to pay for this, and how do you do it without raising taxes and relying on, assessment fees going up?
You tinkered with the idea of a public-private partnership for City Hall. One of your opponents accused you of trying to sell City Hall.
Well, we're not selling City Hall. I mean, I'm part of the history of the historical fabric of the city. Again, made history becoming the first African-American mayor. But the fact that, my office is at City Hall, and I'm there every day, and I look out on the plaza where
It's a great location.
And the Plaza Market Square area bought and sold slaves, and during that era. And so certainly a lot of history, we're going to preserve it. But in terms of the infrastructure, certainly and we're a very old city. We're almost 270 years old now, more than 270 years old. And so we have an aging infrastructure, but that's not unique just for us. As the chairman of the board of Washington Metropolitan Area Council of Governments, we just completed a study that was done that proved that in the entire DMV, that over $57 billion needed to be invested in office buildings, infrastructure, sewers, water systems, roads and bridges throughout this entire region over the next 20, 30, 40 years. And so that's a very heavy burden and cost to local governments. Certainly, we're having community discussions right now as we speak. We just had a presentation, a status update at City Council meeting the other night by our staff with regards to our combined sewer systems, a plan of action to move forward. And we're going to create a citizens panel to be part of the engagement process as we move along to offer some input. And also the heavy discussion that's important is in terms of how do we pay for it? And certainly, the first answer is not to raise taxes, but it's to look at grants and other types of opportunities that may be available to us. Just like we did for the Braddock Road, the Potomac Yard Metro Station, where $270 million station initially financed through the financial model that was developed was without any other outside funds other than developer contributions to create 2 tax districts in that neighborhood. And now we have benefited by receiving a $50 million loan from the state highway fund. In addition to that, we have a request into the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, where I happen to serve on the board of directors of that organization as the vice chair for $69 of $70 million. So we're, those opportunities, and we just applied for, in the process of applying for a Tiger grant through the U.S. Department of Transportation. Those opportunities afford us a way of reducing the burden of cost and reliance for paying for that type of infrastructure.
Amy Gardner, your turn.
Weigh in, please, if you would, on the Muslim ad issue that we talked about before you came in the studio with WMATA.
I wish I didn't have to, but certainly was a matter of discussion. Resolution passed by the WMATA board yesterday at a board meeting. I think it was the right thing to do. I think I also heard earlier that there's no real right answer to this situation. A matter like this is very sensitive, but it's also we have a responsibility as WMATA to look out for the safety of our riders and the system itself. And so I think, at least in the short term, the action taken by the WMATA board yesterday was the right thing to do. But certainly, we also respect the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and we know that that's always prevalent there. But at least in terms of the action taken that restricts and limits issue type of advertisements for at least the next 6 months is a step in the right direction.
We're going to take a call here from one of your constituents, from Ellen in Alexandria. Ellen, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi. I'm going to be voting for Mayor Ewell on June 9th, but I wanted to ask him first, what couple lessons would he take away from his years as mayor? What would he do differently, or what is the top lesson?
Well, certainly, again, thank you, Ellen, for your endorsement and your support of me, and the fact you're going to vote for me on June 9th. I'd love to have everyone go out and vote for me on June 9th. 4 terms as mayor. There's, the job is very challenging. It's very demanding, but while at the same time, there's always opportunities to continue to learn and do a better job at what you do. What I think what people like about my leadership style is the fact that not only am I accessible, but I'm a listener. I'm a team player, collaborator, and
You say you're out and about.
out and about, and I get
eat
things
at home
done.
only one night a week.
There we go. And so I think what I'd like to do differently moving forward is to work with the community and with our staff to find enhanced and improved ways to improve community engagement. We keep hearing from folks that they feel left out despite the transparency that we have available and so forth. But I know that there's new technology that's out there that's available, but I want to provide the leadership to make certain that we can put that to bed.
Ellen, thanks for your call. One last issue I want to get in here, and we only have about 2 minutes left to discuss it. What concerns do you have about the Memorial Bridge partially shutting down? Traffic in Northern Virginia is one giant mess where all of these concentric circles affect each other. That seems like it's only going to add to the bollocks traffic that we have in Northern Virginia.
Well, it's a sad state of affairs, but it speaks very heavily to the need for Congress to approve a highway transportation bill to fund infrastructure. This is something that not only has the president been calling for, but as an active member of the U.S. Conference of Mayors for the last 4 or 5 years, we have been demanding funding for our infrastructure across this great nation, from roads to bridges to sewers. Again, piggybacks on the question that was asked earlier about the infrastructure in Alexandria. Localities don't have the luxury of being able to bear the burden and the cost of doing all of the infrastructure. And so we've always, in the past, relied on grants and so forth from the federal government. And so this is important, but it's not only important in terms of funding to improve and provide protection and safety to our infrastructure, but it's also a job creator. And there'll be close to 1 million jobs approved if Congress were to fund the current bill that's before them. But now we know there's a 2 months extension, about $11 billion. But that'll go overnight, just with the blink of an eye. But certainly, it just speaks. That's what the Memorial Bridge situation speaks to, the challenges that we face not only in this region but nationally.
And your primary is on June 9th. You're running against Kerry Donnelly, former mayor of Alexandria, former city council member, as well as Vice Mayor Alan Silberberg. You just heard Bill Ewell, the current mayor of Alexandria. Again, he's up for re-election in a primary on June 9th. Good luck to you.
Well, thank you. I thank the Washington Post for their endorsement.
Patrick Madden, it's been fun.
Good to be here.
Patrick Madden's our guest analyst today. He's a reporter for WAMU 88.5 News. And Amy Gardner, we got to find a way to get you back here more often. Do you enjoy being back on the local beat?
I love it. I love being back on the local desk. It's really fun. And I am really disappointed to hear what Tom Sherwood had to say about Virginia. Tell him I said so. If you're listening, Tom, I'm coming after you.
This is a running thing, but we should be glad that Tom is actually on vacation this week. There's this running thing where Tom Sherwood says he's going to go on vacation. He ends up going on staycation here in the DC area. It's kind of endearing because he takes lots of photos of the local places he goes to. But yeah, Tom
he bought
is
his fins, so that
and he bought his swimming fins at Sports.
And Kojo, I miss you. We all miss you and wish you the best.
Absolutely.
Ditto.
Yep.
I'm Michael Martinez. I've been sitting in for Kojo Namdi today. Thanks so much for listening.